Hello, what's up guys, Medium Guy here, and in this video we're going to see how to create an echo server in Node.js, and later we'll see how to Dockerize it and run it as a Docker container. So if you want to learn more, stick with me. So what is an echo server? Basically, an echo server is a web server that we run somewhere for multiple purposes. Things like we want to actually detect about the detail of the requests that are being sent by our applications, and using this echo server we'll be able to inspect through the headers and body that is being sent to our echo server, and by inspecting this data we can later decide on how we actually need to implement our custom logic. Also, in another scenario, suppose like you want to run multiple instances of your backend server, and actually by using something like a load balancer you want to inspect how your load balancer is actually working and it is working as expected or not. So in this case you would run multiple instances of your echo server that will actually respond back with the data of the host that it is being run and some data like that. So eventually you'll be able to inspect the requests that are being passed through your load balancer and later being received by your backend servers, which in this case will be the echo servers. So if you have watched my other videos, you've most probably seen that I'm using some other echo servers that I just find randomly and pull from the internet, and right in this video we're actually going to create from scratch an echo server in Node.js, and we'll actually see the steps in order to create our own echo server and Dockerize it and actually run it using a Docker Compose file. So with having all this in mind, I'll move to the VS Code right over here. As you can see, I've got some files already prepared, which of course I'll put all the files and configurations in my GitHub repository, and for which you'll find the link down in the description section of this video. So first thing, in the index.js file right over here, you can see that I'm actually using the Express as my web server, and using the body parser package I'm actually parsing the requests bodies that will be later received by my Express web server, and doing so I'll be able to access the body data of the requests that will be received by my server. So I'll inject this as a middleware to my app, which is actually an instance of Express, and down right over here I'm using the app.all, and I'll pass star to actually catch all methods of the requests to wildcard every path that will be received by my Express server. So whatever request our clients will send using whatever methods and using whatever path, this block of code will actually catch that request, and implementing our custom logic will try to actually respond with some data. So as you can see right over here, I'm grabbing the IP, URL, headers, body and query from the request that is being received by the Express server, and right over here I'm trying to console log the request to the std out of my application. So actually you can see that I'm also adding the host name to the data that will be logged to the output. So using the response.status, I'm setting the status code of the response that will be sent back to the client, and by using the send method I'll be able to respond with some data as the response of the requests that will be received from the clients. So actually I'm trying to send back the exact same data that I grabbed from the request, and also added the host name to that data back to the client. So lastly, right over here I've got a app.listen on the given port that we just set right over here, and as the callback method I'll just try to console log the Express app is listening on the exact port that it is supposed to be listening. So next, before moving to the Dockerfile, I'll move to the package.json file right over here, and you can see that I've got two dependencies, which is exactly the body parser and the Express itself. So basically if you want to run this as a Node.js application, you would initially need to run an npm install command to actually install the dependencies so the project will be able to run in your system. So next I'll move to the Dockerfile right over here. As you can see, I'm using the Node.js 20 Alpine as my base image, and I'm setting the working directory to the /app app. Next, I'll copy the package start.json to the working directory. So actually this will copy the package.json and package-log.json file from my host machine to inside the image that will be created. And next I'll try to run npm install. So basically this is the exact same thing that you would do when you grab the source code for a Node.js application in order to install the dependencies and prepare the project to be able to actually run. Next, right over here, I've got the copy dot. So this instruction will actually copy whatever that I have in my project directory to the inside the image on the working directory. So by doing this, I'll make sure that my project files will exist in my final image. And right over here, I'm exposing the port 80, and this is the exact port that my Express project will try to listen on, and also the exact port that I'll map to outside the containers that I'll be creating out of this image in order to access this echo server running as a Docker container also. So lastly, I'm setting the default command of the image that will be created to npm start, and as we saw in the package.json file, npm start will actually run node index.js, which is exactly the same file that we saw right over here. So I'll move to the terminal and try to actually build this image, and right over here I'll hit ls to make sure I'm in the exact same directory that I've got all my files and configurations. So I'll say docker build -t to give my image a name and a tag. So I'll pass my desired name and tag, and I'll pass dot at the end as the context for my docker build command. So I'll hit enter, and for me, because I have already built this image previously on my machine, will take a matter of seconds, and if you actually try to build in your system, it might take a while, so no worries, and give it a time to do its things. So right now my image is prepared, and I should be able to create containers out of my image. The next thing, I'll move to the VS Code again, move to the Docker Compose file right over here. So as you can see, I've got only one service, which is using the exact same image that we just built. So actually, I'll push this image to the Docker Hub, and you won't actually need to build this image from scratch by yourself. So next, I'm passing my container a name, and right over here, I'm actually exposing the port 80 from inside the container to the port 8080 outside the container. So as a result, the clients will use this 8080 port and IP address of my host machine to actually make connections to the echo server running inside the Docker container. So with that, I'll move back to the terminal right over here, and by saying docker compose op-d, I'll actually expect a Docker network and a container to be created, attaching my container to that created network. So right now I'll say docker compose ps to actually see whatever containers that have been created by this Docker Compose file that exists in my current directory. So as I can see, only one container has been created, which is exactly our custom echo server, and right over here I can verify that my desired ports have successfully been mapped to the inside the container. So by saying docker compose logs, I'll pass -f to follow the logs and --tail 100 to grab the latest 100 lines of the outputted logs. So I'll hit enter, and you can see that my echo server application is successfully running inside the container. So I'll move to another terminal, and by using curl, I'll try to make some requests to the local host on port 8080. And if I hit enter, you can see that the response is successfully coming back from the echo server running as a Docker container. So as you can see right over here, it is responding with the exact same data that we implemented in our index.js file. And like for example, I'll try to make some requests to the /API, and I'll try to pass some query parameters. So I'll say query, and I'll set it to 100. And if I hit enter, again, you can see that the URL has been successfully set right over here. The URL query parameters have been logged right over here. And also, if I try to pass in some headers, like for example, I'll say user-agent, and I'll set it to Chrome. So I'll hit enter. So I just forgot to put the colon right over here. And as you can see, when I pass in some headers and set the user agent header of the request that I'm trying to send, as the result in the header section in the response of the request, you can see that the user agent is now set to Chrome instead of curl, as you can see in my previous requests. So that's all for this video. I hope you learned something new in this one. I'll put all the files and configurations in my GitHub repository, for which you can find the link down in the description section of this video. And of course, I'll push the image to the Docker Hub, and you can actually pull whenever needed in your test environments to actually test your infrastructure. So if you found the video useful, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to my channel, which will help grow the channel and motivate me to create more free contents like this. And with that, that's all for this video, and I hope to see you in the next videos.